Note, as much as I may not like some of the nominated films, none of them is exactly a bad movie. But before I go any further, I must note that I consider there to be a huge chasm of difference between the previous films and the next 5. That being said, Manchester by the Sea is a tale of post-traumatic depression set in a town called Manchester, which is, as the rest of the movie title gives away, by the sea, revealing that this isn't UK's Manchester, but some town in the US. A melancholic tale about a responsible single father who dies and puts a plumber who gets drunk and high on cocaine and sets his house on fire, killing all of his 3 children, and thus lives in the basement with a minimal source of income, a history of alcohol abuse, drunken assaults, suicidal tendencies, and constant depression, in charge of his son. Yes, really. It starts with a series of sketches about a deadpan plumber being generally dismissive or disrespectful of his customers and going out at night and getting into drunken fistfights over nothing. A premise that, given good development and writing, could be something I'd watch all day. But that's not at all what this is about. Also, the nephew and old Casey hate each other, but are forced to get along, which normally results in a coming-of-age comedy. But, once again, that's not at all what this is about. This one's about depression. Deep, dark, gargantuan depression. And it's all dictated by a wonderful performance by Casey Affleck, who drags the story along with his performance and refuses to develop as a character while also trying really hard to stagnate the story. But there are times where they show us the nephew's band or his relationships with his girlfriends, or establish a plot point only to resolve it with, "Hey, I suddenly remembered we have these expensive guns in the house," or the strange compulsion with opening stuff. There's a part where the kid opens the refrigerator and they argue about it. There's a part where they both argue because he opened the car door. And of course, all the character's life is overshadowed by the fact that he left the fireplace window open. I get that the self-induced lethargy is a key point of the film, but there's no grand arc, and not much is developed nor resolved by the end of the third act, leaving us with nothing satisfactory and nothing to think about, except maybe the importance of door openings. Denis Villeneuve directs this sci-fi flick about language, starring Amy Adams as a teacher set to interpret the coffee stains sent by 7-footed freaks Abbott and Costello. It starts by slowly setting up the premise, cleverly using the character as an audience surrogate, as if we were in her shoes, since we're discovering the film's setting at the same time she is, while everything around her is increasingly becoming bigger and more visible. It's all done extremely well and all, but there's one tiny problem I have with all of this. It's done exactly like the beginning of Villeneuve's previous film, Sicario. Now, if I knew any better, I'd guess this was production's way to cash in on a narrative style they saw working on a $4.3 million film. You know, safely transporting it to a $24 million one. I guess we'll never know. So, some aliens arrive, and so the army hires Amy Adams, a renowned linguist, to communicate with the aliens, somehow overlooking Diane Fossey. Personally, I'm a fan of Villeneuve's style, and I like how he's not afraid to focus on the aspects he considers important for the film, sometimes letting some subplots just occur in the background, letting us connect the dots by ourselves. But I felt something missing as they jumped from the beginning of the attempt to communicate directly to a point where the language was somewhat fluid. And while I understand that the process might be too abstract, I couldn't help but think about it, leaving me to consider that they presented us the process of communicating with alien life forms somewhat similarly to underpants gnomes presenting us their plans to obtain profit. This masterfully done coming-of-age story deals with many themes that are also picked up by many of the other films, but crushes them completely to oblivion. Instead of focusing on a minority underdog who excels at reciting the alphabet and wins the film by winning the hearts of several white people and earning a well-deserved applause, Moonlight meticulously shows us a commoner growing up as a homosexual African-American, following his path through fear of seeming emasculated towards a macho-dominated world that both frightens and is frightened by him, and haunts his own emotional growth throughout his life, turning him into an oppressed youngster with no one by his side, not even his own loved ones, making him protect himself using a metaphorical armor to hide the fact that behind that hulking figure is an empty shell of a man, and still a frightened broken child repressed into never getting to be himself. All this with outstanding photography, groundbreaking performances, and without any of that usual sensationalist bullshit. It is what it is. We don't have to feel sorry for poor young Chiron. Although I did feel it started well, growing strong in the first 2 acts, only to end up with an awkward date in the 3rd act. If you're one of those people who likes drama, action, humor, suspense, or mystery, you're bound to like something of this versatile western. Also, it's a proper Western, with cowboys, Indians, bank robberies, last stands, sheriffs, and even no choice of meal except for T-bone steaks and potatoes, just like in the good old days. Glancing on a forgotten but real, or so I'm told, inland America, using its Western tone to show a depth-driven America in an almost post-apocalyptic fashion with a great build-up towards a spectacular ending. And while we're in the subject of who should win, with all due respect for his admittedly good performance, fuck Marshall Ali. Jeff Bridges is the man. Yeah, I know. Don't hate me. It's not that I like it that much. It's just that I consider it to be a really good movie on its own merits. And I didn't particularly care for most of the other nominees. There are some hidden gems in the ceremony, and films like Silence, Elle, The Lobster, or Tony Erdmann are much better than this overly hyped rom-com. Oh, did you notice? I said rom-com, not musical. Because it is both. But for some reason, a lot of the fuss was about, how can a musical get this much appraisal? Well, it surprises me more that a romantic comedy gets all this recognition, even though they did put in some classic Oscar-bation techniques. Good musicals appear in award ceremonies every now and then, but romantic comedies are a genre so dead, the last good ones were literally zombie flicks. But the main problem with La La Land is precisely the hype, because you can't help but watching it while playing a game of spot the flaws, and can never enjoy it properly. However, there's an upside to the advertising. When everyone talks about this romantic musical about a happily singing couple named La La Land, seriously, La La Land, with a dancing couple on the cover, opening with a marvelously executed yet cheesy intro, I'm already sharpening my pitchfork. But as the film progresses, it becomes clear that we stand before a real couple, consisting of two real people who live their flawed lives and commit mistakes, argue, and miscommunicate, and things don't always turn out so merrily for them throughout the story, nor at the end. And even the musical part. It starts all, "Ooh, what dress should I wear for a colorful night out with my friends? I have responsibilities, but like whatever." But it ends up more diegetic, with jazz bands playing, as they actually argue about jazz, and its acceptance by the public, and where resides the line between true art and selling out. As much as I praised Moonlight back then, there's a core difference between them, and of course I'm not even daring to compare them in terms of genre, but how well made they are in their own merit. While Moonlight has a strong start and grows, but reaches the third act and gets a bit underwhelming mainly due to the high stakes that the first two acts set, La La Land starts as a skillful yet cute and harmless comedy, and grows from there, leaving you actually rooting for the characters and invested in their outcome. It grows on you. Of course, the premise was, who should win, and not what's the best of the nominees. So, ladies and gentlemen, who should really win every single Academy Award this year? Easy. The Greasy Strangler.